Hi everybody. This is going to be a new video series today. This one's going to be a little bit difficult for some people to listen to, but I hope you'll stick with me through it. Even if you don't necessarily agree with what I have to say, that's okay. Just hear what I have to say and listen to the end. This one is called Between the Branches. This is talking about two errors on one road. So welcome to episode 1, In Between the Branches, the narrow road between replacement theology and the Hebrew roots movement. In this series, we are walking a narrow road, a road that is lined with warnings on either side. You see, on one side there is replacement theology, which says the church has replaced Israel. On the other side, Hebrew roots legalism, which says Gentile believers must become Jews to be faithful Christians. You see, the problem with that is these are both errors, and there is one road between them. If we lose sight of the middle, we will lose the way entirely. Let's talk about these two extremes. First of all, the replacement theology, where it says the church replaces Israel. Some say that because Israel rejected Messiah, that God has rejected them, that the church is the new Israel, inheriting all the promises and leaving ethnic Israel with nothing but judgment. But listen to what Paul says in Romans 11, verses 1 and 2. He says, I ask then, has God rejected his people? By no means. For I myself am an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, a member of the tribe of Benjamin. God has not rejected his people whom he foreknew. So, you see, replacement theology is not just an error, it's arrogance. It erases Israel's prophetic future. It undermines the faithfulness of God, who keeps covenant to 1,000 generations. Think about this. If he could cast Israel aside, then what confidence do we have that he won't cast us aside? Now we're going to look at the other side of this. The Hebrew roots legalism that says the Gentiles must become like the Jews. On the opposite side, some say if Gentile believers want to be faithful, they must keep Torah, Sabbaths, feasts, dietary laws. Some even say we have to keep the rabbinic customs. They make Moses the standard of righteousness instead of Jesus. But the apostles confronted this head on. We see it in Acts chapter 15, verse 10. It says, now therefore, why are you putting God to the test by placing a yoke on the neck of the disciples that neither our fathers nor we have been able to bear? And so you see, this error is just as deadly as replacement. It diminishes the finished work of Christ. It confuses covenant identities. It lays a burden that the Spirit never laid. The cross was not the front door to lead back into Torah. The cross was the torn veil into the presence of God, my friends. So I'm going to bring this home, but we're not going to be done with this video. Both extremes breed bondage. Both extremes lead to arrogance. Replacement boasts against the branches, and Hebrew roots boasts in the branches. But the narrow road calls us to humility, to remember that we stand by grace and grace alone, to walk not in lawless freedom, but in Spirit-led faith, to discern when zeal is drifting into error. When covenant is twisted, you see, Christ is diminished. But when covenant is seen rightly, Christ is exalted. That's why we must walk the road between the branches. You see, there's two errors, one road, and only one shepherd who keeps us on it. Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice, and they follow me." The voice of replacement theology is not his, and the voice of Hebrew roots legalism is not his. The voice of the shepherd calls us to walk in grace and in truth. Now, I'm not done, but this video is ending. Be sure to follow so you don't miss episode 2. The root has not been cut. We're going to open Romans 11 and see how Paul makes it clear. The root of God's covenant is still alive, still nourishing, and still holding the whole story together. Because until you understand the root, you'll never understand the branches. And remember, my friends, when you look at the cross, don't look at the extremes. Look into the face of the Savior. See you next time.